Hey guys, Chaps here, and let's talk about esports. So I was on Reddit the other day, and someone pinged me sort of out of the blue and just asked why I thought Gears Esports had died. I hadn't made any post about it, at least not in over a year or so I don't know why they messaged me, but they did. Anyways, a few thoughts came to mind, and I started thinking about it a bit more. I was like, this is actually a sort of interesting topic. Maybe I should dive into this a bit more. Now hold up, I know what you're thinking. Why does Chaps, a very casual player who really has never played esports, I don't even play ranked, why do I have anything to say about the esports scene? And yeah, I get it, but before you bash this, one, I would just say, watch the video, see what I have to say, but then I have a chance for you guys to get your comments heard, and just wait till the end of the video and you'll see what I mean there. But anyways, I am a casual player, and I'm a longtime fan, but I'm a casual player. I'm not playing ranked, I'm actually not really playing much except for going for a few challenges, and I'm really just there to have fun and play with friends. While that almost sounds sort of like the opposite of someone who should be commenting on esports, I feel it's actually still a pretty valid opinion. I might not be the one playing in the tournaments, but a large part of what keeps these esports scenes going are the viewers. And if you can't retain a longtime player and a hardcore Gears fan like myself, what are your chances of retaining new players? I guess what I'm saying is that maybe take this video with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that I know the reasons that Gears Esports has died, but I do feel like I have a certain perspective on it that probably shouldn't be ignored. I'm guessing I'm not alone with this one. And I'll say none of what I'm really going to be talking about in this video is some big revelation. These are all thoughts that I've had, and I know many of you have had for many years, and I just figured if one person was willing enough to reach out on Reddit and ask for my opinion on it, maybe there's some other people who are interested as well. Alright, so back to the question at hand, why did Gears Esports die? Well, let's start with the obvious one, and that's COVID. The shift to online-only tournaments certainly hasn't helped things, and that's kind of outside the control of the organizers, so I'm not really going to focus on that. I will say, up front, be very clear, COVID was a big reason that the Gears Esports scene has died a lot quicker than they probably hoped that it would. On the other hand, though, Gears Esports has basically been on the decline for a few years now before COVID. I'll group Gears 4 and 5 together for most of this discussion because, ever since that initial announcement of the $1 million season in Gears 1, things have been pretty similar in terms of the game mode and the teams and how things have been organized. At the heart of the problem, we have Escalation. It's the premier game mode for Gears Esports, and quite frankly, it just doesn't work. The mode works. It actually works pretty well in esports mode if the purpose of it was really just to figure out who the best team was. Honestly, I believe that in an ideal environment where you have two solid teams playing, this mode does a great job of making sure that the better team will come out most of the time, and it emphasizes teamwork and individual skill. That said, the mode being good at determining who the best team is isn't really enough in order to make something a good esports mode, especially when you start to consider the viewers and viewership of that mode. And saying it's not great for viewers is one thing, but what I wanted to focus on for part of this video is why. I think the simplest answer is really just that it's super complicated and probably overcomplicated. And this is double whammy. First up, people don't want to watch a sport that they don't understand, that they can't follow. And the other issue is, with the complexity of the mode, it just becomes a barrier to entry. Gears already has a huge barrier to entry. I think most accept that. The learning curve in Gears is massive. Escalation has an even larger barrier to entry. There's just so many rules and these special nuances, and it's hard enough to get into Gears, and then to learn all of that special stuff on top of it. It just becomes a wall that many people can't get over, or they don't have the will to get over. This all sort of comes together and is made even worse with the fact that unless you have an organized team that's communicating, you're playing with a group of friends and you're all in party chat, or you have a dedicated team that all plays together, the mode actually doesn't play that well. It plays really well with a dedicated team and people who understand it, but playing online with randoms, it doesn't work out that well, and it's really not that much fun. So it's hard enough for a new player to get into Gears multiplayer, but a new player getting into Escalation is just out of the question. Myself as a longtime player, I even have issues adjusting to this complicated mode. Like I said before, I think Escalation's actually a great mode to have teams, organized teams, duke it out, But another hit against it is that most simply just don't find it to be a fun mode. Forget the fact that it's complicated, actually that's probably one of the reasons it's not fun, but it's just, by nature, it's designed to be a competitive mode played by organized teams, and a majority of people playing online are not playing with full stacks. I'd guess that a majority are probably interested in playing with their friends and playing for fun, not trying to get out there and sweat it out. This creates a natural gap between what Gears fans are playing, or what they want to play, and what Gears Esports is showcasing. So with a lot of esports, they try to make analogies to more traditional sports. So I like playing hockey, so I'm going to use hockey here, and playing rec hockey and playing professional hockey, the sport's very similar. There's a few minor changes, but overall it's the same basic game. But now, what if the NHL had something where it was like 2 goals per side, 3 pucks, required you to play in like 2-minute stints, and, well, is it really truly hockey anymore? I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I kind of feel the same way about Gears Esports. I love playing Gears, but to me, Escalation just doesn't feel like Gears anymore. It just takes things a few steps too far. And to be completely honest, I don't know what it is. Like, having 3 rings in there, that's fine. Changing the respawn times, that's fine. Limited lives, I'm good with that. Weapon placement changes on the map, I actually don't mind that to some extent. But you combine this all together, and apparently it just doesn't feel right to myself, a lot of the people I play with, and I imagine a lot of other people out there. I think it really comes down to the fact that when you take all of these extra variables and you add them in, it does just make for this ultra-competitive mode that sort of sucks the fun out of it. You have to focus so much on the competitive aspect and doing things right, and it's just not fun anymore. You have to really work as a team and really pay attention. It's not a casual experience. And yeah, I know I get the irony in that. I'm saying the reason I don't like it is it's not a casual experience, and yet we're sitting here talking about esports. But at the same time, I feel like the casual experience and the esports experience should really overlap a lot. It should be the same mode. You should be able to play a mode casually or in esports and have it be the same mode, maybe with a few very minor changes. It just changes the way you play that mode. With Gears, yeah, you're still playing Gears, but you're playing 2 very different modes. Oh, and I do want to butt in and say that I know most of what I was just talking about was escalation-centric. I do realize that they've added Execution 2.0, or I don't think they're using Execution. I think Execution 2.0 and Control or King of the Hill or whatever, they're starting to add these other modes back in, and that's great. I know a lot of pros ask for it. I know a lot of viewers ask for it. But they started Gears 4 was all escalation. Gears 5 started escalation. It was very hard to move off of that. Escalation is still one of the main modes played in these tournaments. Escalation is a big thing. They really need to kill that off, and that is why I spent so much of this video talking about escalation in general. So now, if a Gears player like myself has issues with how complicated the mode is, just think about how hard it is for a viewer. At any given time, you need to be aware of where the weapons are, how long is left on each weapon, where the 3 rings are, where each of the 10 players are. There's less obvious things like the respawn timers on the weapons or ammo counts. There's a lot of information that needs to be tracked. And they try to convey that all in the overhead when you're watching the esports, and honestly, the spectators, like the people controlling the cameras to show everything, and the production crew, they seem to do a pretty good job with what they're given to try and show everything. But I feel like it's a bit too much to really appreciate what is going on in the match. And to really highlight that, I did actually end up talking to this guy that reached out on Reddit. We actually hopped on Discord and chatted for a little bit. And when I talked about the different rotations that are going on and teamwork and crossing, and he was kind of surprised to know that there was actually that much teamwork and really the amount of mental strategy going on in the game. It's something that isn't really able to be conveyed too well through the screen when people are just watching, and I think that that's a big part of what we're missing out on. The rotation and the teamworks, the flow, is amazing if you can pay enough attention and actually see what's going on. And unless you're watching the overhead map that shows everyone, you're probably going to miss a lot of these nuances. And then if you focus too much on that, you're not paying attention to, an actual player's perspective and seeing them go off with a Nasher and do some crazy play, which, if we're being honest, that's where the real action is, and that's what gets people excited. It's not impossible to track and appreciate, but it requires a certain level of concentration, and I'd say a significant level of concentration. When you're playing Escalation a lot, it can become second nature to follow a lot of this stuff, and you don't even think about it. But for someone watching on Twitch, especially a new player watching on Twitch, do you really think they're paying that much attention to all these little things? I have friends who game, like, they play games on their PC or Xbox all the time, but they don't play Gears. And they've seen Gears Esports a couple times. I've had it on in our family room when there's a tournament going on over the weekend. And they come in and everything just goes way over the head. They don't know enough about certain aspects of the game to really appreciate what's going on. There's large portions where they say everything looks too slow, and then other portions where everything's just too chaotic and you can't really follow it at all. I get that probably happens in a lot of esports, but that's probably an issue with a lot of esports, and I'd say it's a huge issue with Gears. And that brings us to the next main point I wanted to discuss, which is just viewership of Gears multiplayer in general, not just Escalation. Positioning is really important, and that requires knowing the lanes and knowing the details of the map. You get slow moments in gameplay, and that's usually when experienced players can appreciate the positioning and the planning for some play that's about to happen. For inexperienced players, it can really feel like a boring, hey, why isn't anything happening? And on the other end are those one-on-ones where it's close quarter battles or maybe a 2-on-1 and there's like a ton of people moving around, because movement is huge and shot placement is huge. And for a viewer, when you're watching someone bounce around and just get around the map really quickly, it can somewhat be hard to tell what happened during a fight. Like, let's be honest, some people really like wall bouncing or hyper bouncing or something. It looks pretty dumb, and if you're not someone who follows Gears, it can be really hard to tell what's actually going on. The replays may make things a bit more clear, but in general, it's overly chaotic. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You got this slow, very mental game of setting stuff up, and you've got this overly chaotic, fast-paced, in-your-face stuff. And trying to find that balance, like, Gears doesn't have too much that's in that balance zone. It's either on one side or the other, and it just keeps flopping. Now you take this aspect of everything being too fast or it's too slow and combine that with all the intricacies that I mentioned earlier on things that you need to track and things that new people probably can't pick up. And yeah, it just makes for an experience that if you have the dedication and the knowledge to appreciate it, it's really cool. But to most people out there, it's difficult to appreciate. Even as an experienced player or viewer, it can still be hard to appreciate unless you're really dedicated to watching. Like, sometimes if there's a Gears tournament on, like, I think this is Saturday, there's a Gears tournament today, I think, and I might turn it on later and watch a match or something, but I'm going to watch it casually, like, just have it on the background, watch a little bit of it, and because of that, I'm going to miss out on a lot of those intricacies. I'm not going to know everyone's position, I'm not going to know the story of how things are progressing over the course of the tournament. I won't see the ammo counts very clearly and know which teams are placing which weapons down. You really need to be dedicated in order to get that information, and unless you're dedicated enough and concentrated enough on every game in this tournament, it's going to be hard to really appreciate things, and the games can get kind of boring and stale. So most of what I just said there focused on the game mode itself and the viewership experience. And there's two last things I wanted to discuss, and they're pretty quick here. The first one, I know this one's going to be very controversial, and that's just the trash talk, and I guess I'll add in the artificial hype. Like, some say trash talk is just part of gaming, or it's a part of Gears. Personally, I find it to be a bit excessive, and honestly, it's unfitting for people who are trying to become pro athletes. Like, they're not just saying they're pro esports players, they're trying to be pro athletes. And you watch some larger esports tournaments, and there might be some trash talking, but Gears takes it to a new level, and some say, hey, that's what makes Gears awesome. To me, it's a bit extreme, and it just gets laughable at some point. Like, the tough guy acts and the egos in these tournaments are just, for me at least, it's really a turnoff, and I just laugh at it. Like I said, some are probably going to disagree with that, but that's how I feel. Something I think more people are going to agree with is the roster churn and the instability, and that's just really killing the Gears Esports scene in general. As with most sports, people try to either follow a player, like, I really want to follow this player from whatever team they go to, or most people want to follow a team. A lot of that has to do with where you live and you're following your local team, but whatever, they want to follow a team. Gears has this issue, and everyone knows it has this issue, with the constant reshuffling after every single tournament. Teams are coming and going. They're like Optic, for example. I don't even think they have a big team anymore. They used to be the number one team. And there's just a lack of consistency. It's really hard to become a dedicated fan when, sure, you might be able to follow a player, but maybe they're playing with other people that you don't like. So how can you be a fan of a team when the team keeps changing? Or maybe the team's not even going to be there next season. It's rare that a team gets established and sticks together. And we did have a few short periods where some teams stuck together and maybe had a few small changes throughout the years, and those teams typically did pretty well. But more recently, it seems like there's just churn everywhere. I don't know what the solution is. Like, having locks probably isn't the right thing, and we're not at the point where it's big enough to be a giant salaried thing. But for a game trying to become a large esport, this amateur approach to team organization, it's doing more harm than good. Alright, I'm going to stop rambling here. There's a lot more I could say, but I'll save that for later. And I know, honestly, I'm a casual player, and you guys are probably tired of hearing a casual player talk about esports. But you know what? Here's the time for you to have your say. Is there something you disagree with, or something that I missed? You might remember those panels that I used to set up where I get people from the community to come in and talk about something. I'd like to get some people to come in and talk about esports. Sort of going through the games over the years and what was good and what was bad about each of Gears 1 through Gears 5. What was good and what was bad about each of those esports. And then I also wanted to make a more positive looking forward discussion about, okay, a lot of this has been what's wrong, why Gears Esports sort of died. I want to discuss what could they do in Gear 6 in order to make for a successful esport. I've got a few ideas, and I know I've seen a lot of things passed around out there, but I thought that would be an interesting topic for some discussion. So if you're interested in joining that, go ahead and drop a comment down below or hit me up on Twitter. If you aren't interested in joining but have a thought, you can put that down in the comments. I certainly read all of them, and I can, if there's some good points down there, or maybe even some points I disagree with, I'll bring them up to the panel and we can try and discuss them. So, anyways, I know content's been pretty sparse recently, but if you enjoyed this and you want to see that panel, go ahead and subscribe. If you did like this video, go ahead and drop it a like. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will catch you next time. See ya.